All right. Buying at a discount is recommended but not mandatory. Is it absolutely critical that you buy that defaulted piece of paper at a discount?
No.
No? What would determine that you pay face value for it?
Loan to value.
Loan to value. Now, wait a minute. I got a house that's worth $80,000, for example, and there's a $25,000 first on it. It's in default. They're foreclosing. By the way, does it matter if there's a second and a third?
No, they're wiped out.
Oh, well, it matters to me, because if there's a second and a third, there's a very good chance that I'm not going to wind up with the property. One of them's probably going to come in there and cure the default, or it's over, aren't they? Hello? Yeah, it matters. But if there is a second and a third, I'm probably going to want a discount. I'm probably going to want a discount, because if I pay face value, the only thing I'm going to get out of doing this is the interest that is accrued on that note. Maybe. Maybe. Of course, remember all them fees I have a habit of adding in there when it comes time to get me paid off? I'm going to find a way to make me a little money on this thing, even if they redeem it. So, but if it's a first mortgage and there are no seconds or thirds, there's a better chance that I'm going to wind up with a property. And of course, that's certainly not guaranteed. That's also a good chance that some of us sharks are going to be there at the auction bidding the property up. But who names the payoff on the first? The mortgagee. And if I buy that mortgage, who becomes the mortgagee? Yeah. So I very well may pay face value if I feel like it, especially if it's a higher interest loan. I mean, putting out $25,000 and it's a 15% loan or whatever, that's the very least you can get, isn't it? The very least you can get is that 14 or 15% that accrues on that money between the time you buy it and the time somebody pays you off. Isn't that right? And with a little bit of ingenuity, I think we can increase that ante quite a bit, don't you? If I can't get it discounted, and I like the loan-to-value ratio, and I like the property, I may just well go ahead and pay face value and see what happens, and force the issue. Let me tell you the ones that I really like buying the most, though. I really like buying the ones, if I'm going to buy them and not get a great big discount, I like buying the vacant, ugly houses, or mortgages on vacant, ugly houses. Why?
Redemption period shorter.
Because the chances of somebody redeeming it are much, much less. You see, they'll go to the auction and buy the pretty ones, but they ain't so apt to go to the auction and buy the vacant, ugly ones. And I'll tell you another reason. If the house is vacant and ugly, it means that the owner-occupant is not going to redeem it, nor file bankruptcy on me if I have to foreclose on it.
Ron,
Did you hear that? If the owner-occupant's not in the house, chances are slim they're going to file bankruptcy on you. On the other hand, if I'm buying paper on a property that is owner-occupied, they're going to fight tooth and nail to protect their rights. It might be a long time before I get it back, just like this couple I talked to you about here. If I'm buying paper on a vacant house, number one, the bank's more apt to sell it to me, especially if it's ugly. Number two, I'm more apt to have less problem getting title to the property. Question?
Not question, Ron, just a comment. In some states like Michigan, the redemption period is 6 months there. If it's vacant, it reduces it to 1 month.
Oh, really? If I lived in Michigan, there wouldn't be an option. I would definitely buy paper only on vacant houses. Hear what he said? The redemption period in Michigan is 6 months if it's owner-occupied, 1 month if it's not. I like that. By the way, if you're going to buy tax certificates, Michigan is a state to buy them. What's the maximum that you can collect up there? 50%?
Yeah.
50%. Even I might be satisfied with that rate of return. Probably not. But never buy a piece of paper without checking the title first. If you do, it's seminar time. If you're buying a second, make sure it's a second. In addition to that, you have to know what you're dealing with, don't you? You have to know what other liens are on the property. For example, IRS. Because if you're buying a second, and there's an IRS third on it, I think, Phyllis just told you what could happen. They could come back and redeem it. Even if they don't, and they probably won't in that case, you've got to wait 120 days to get clear title. Now, that may or may not be a big problem. But you better know it's there, hadn't you? You better know it's there. What about state liens? Does a foreclosure wipe out city and state liens? No. In other words, you could be in second position, and there could be a $10,000 state lien on the house that you didn't know was there. You thought you were in second. And the truth is, aren't you really in third? If that state lien is superior to your lien and you can't wipe it out, it's the same as if you're just now buying a third mortgage, isn't it? Hello? Because you can't wipe them out. You have a first mortgage that's superior to you, and you have a state lien that's superior to you. You're in third position any way you like it. any kind of a lien filed by the state. For state income taxes, or whatever else states file liens for. City liens, just as bad. For boarding it up, or mowing the grass, or unpaid sidewalk, whatever. Water, sewage, yes. You need to check title, make sure you know what you're dealing with.
What about mechanics liens?
Mechanics liens, too, if they're on there before your second, well, they wouldn't be on there before your second. You would wipe out a mechanics lien if they're inferior to you.
My question was, what about unrecorded liens?
There is no such thing. I'm not worried about any unrecorded lien, with a possible exception of one. And here's one you ought to watch when you're buying houses. If you're out buying a property and it looks like that the city might have been involved in some action, for instance, if it's boarded up, you better darn sure check. Or if it looks like the city's cleaned up the premises, or they've mowed the lawn or whatever, or if there's a sticker on the door saying they have, you better have your title company call the city direct and see if there's any city liens pending on the property that haven't been recorded yet. Because it takes them months sometimes to record these liens. Now, you buy the property, your title company checks the property down for title, and the lien has not been recorded. The title company does not know it exists. They issue you clear title. Now you close, and the lien comes down 2 months later and gets recorded against the property. Is it your problem or the title company's problem? It is your problem. If that lien was not of public record at the time that title company issued that policy, they have no responsibility whatsoever to pay for it.
If they use title insurance from that?
Even with title insurance. If it was not recorded at the time that they issued you the title, it is not their problem. It is your problem because you own the property. You have to find out by calling the city department that is responsible for issuing the warrant to do the work and see if there's a lien pending. You just have your title company do it. Say, title company, I suspect the city's got a lien working. Would you check it out before we close? Let them do it.
How do you gain access to a house that's vacant when you acquire a second mortgage?
How do I gain access to a house that's vacant when I acquire the second mortgage? It's called a crowbar. Or a hammer. Or a screwdriver. If the house is vacant, folks, and I want in it, I'm getting in it. Especially if I happen to be a lien holder. Incidentally, do I have that right as a lien holder? If a house is vacant and assumed abandoned, mortgage holders have the right to go secure their interest. And you have that right when you buy that mortgage anyway. But would that matter whether I had that right or not? No. Okay? Make sure you get an assignment, not a satisfaction. We covered that. Take the assignment in a paper trust. We covered that too, didn't we? Where do you find these defaulted pieces of paper we're talking about? Folks, every bank in this country, every mortgage company, every credit union, and every finance company that files foreclosure on a property or that is getting ready to file foreclosure on a property is a candidate to buy discounted paper. I had one call me yesterday. Got what has he got? Got a $28,000 first mortgage on a property worth about $45. Wanted me to go pay him $18 for it. I ain't even went and looked yet. I said, when you get real, call me back. Wanted to sell it to me at a discount. Was offering to sell it to me at a discount. Now, I got to tell you right now that you're going to have to educate some of these banks and so forth because they think you're trying to buy the property. They don't know. Many of them won't know what you mean. You say, I'd like to buy your mortgage. They'll say, well, we don't own the house yet. I say, no kidding. I want to buy your mortgage, not the house. Sign me the paper and give you cash and you're done. So sometimes you have to educate them. Some of them know very well what you're talking about. How will you go about finding them? Isn't it public knowledge when a house gets foreclosed on? Doesn't it record it right at the courthouse? A lot of your cities have a foreclosure service bureau, like Sandy's down in Fort Lauderdale, that you can get the foreclosures delivered to you on a weekly basis. They go down there and check them, and they send it to you. They even send it to you on computer disk. Now, every foreclosure that is being done has a lender right in that package. It tells what lender is suing, who the plaintiff is. It tells the amount of the original mortgage, for crying out loud. Most of the time, they even have the attorney's phone number in there that is suing. Yes?
The institution begins foreclosure, you buy the paper, do you have to restart from the beginning on foreclosure?
No. You can have the institution assign you the foreclosure process if they've begun it. In fact, you probably just take their attorney and have them continue it. Or if it's fresh and it's brand new, I might just start it all over myself. I prefer to do it myself. But if it's 1 month away from the courthouse steps, I'm going to try to keep the one that's going on, not start all over. Individuals who sold the property and took back the paper are great sources for defaulted paper. Come on, give me a break. A seller sells a house, takes back a mortgage. What do you think the last thing in the world they want to do is? Foreclose on that mortgage. Are you going to find some extremely seriously motivated sellers that are holding paper out there? What kind of a seller do you think would be most motivated? An out-of-towner holding a second mortgage, knowing full well that it's fixing to get wiped out by the first. You see, most of them think they got to go pay off the first to protect their interest. And of course, they don't have the money, so they know they're going to get wiped out anyway. So you come in and offer them 10, 15, 20 cents on the dollar cash for their mortgage and be done with it. And then you go do whatever you know you can do. Depends on the loan to value. If the loan to value is right, you do it. Matter of fact, I got a situation right now. You're going to love this one. I just love getting at these banks. I sold I'll write a book. All the things a bank don't want you to know. I sold a house. It had an $8,000 private mortgage on it, and I went out and got my buyer a $16,000 bank second on it. And they paid on it a few years, and then they let it go into default. And the bank hounded for a while, and finally they let it, and the bank knew they were going to take a big hit on it. They didn't want the property. It was not in a very good area, and needed some repairs. So the bank hadn't done anything. They just let it sit there and even file foreclosure. They don't even want the house. But the first mortgage holder contacted me. Said, Ron, we're not getting paid. I said, what do you want me to do? Buy your note? I said, yeah. So I offered him $4,000 for his first mortgage position. Boy, they jumped all over it. I offered them too much. If they take your offer and they jump all over it, what's that tell you? Pay too much. Anyway, I offered him $4,000 for it, and what I'm going to do is, because there's 7 of them involved, and the assignment has to go all the way around the country, and it'll take forever to get it back. There's 7 family members that own the first mortgage. Whenever I get it back, if I ever do, then I'll simply give them $4,000 for that first mortgage, and I'll foreclose the bank off of the second. I'll file foreclosure, and I'll wind up owning the property back for $4,000 plus the cost of foreclosure. Now, what if the bank pays me off? In fact, I hope they do. There's an $8,000 face value plus a bunch of back due. There's probably $12,000 owed on that first right now. You tickle to death if they pay me off. Tickled to death. Private lenders. Sometimes private lenders will sell off the paper. Now, are they going to take a discount? Probably not. Probably not. But do private lenders tend to make super low loan-to-value loans? Huh? Yes. In fact, I'm closing one Monday, $10,000 first on a $50,000 house. If that one happened to go into default, which it won't, but if it did and that private lender didn't want that thing, I'd write a check for face value on that Hummer in a hurry, wouldn't you? Face value, I'd buy that one in a hurry. Yes, Gary?
Why wouldn't you go back and try to buy the second mortgage on that one that didn't want it?
Why should I buy it? I'm going to foreclose it off.
Well, it's going to cost you foreclosing costs. You could probably buy it from them for less than...
Yeah, but there's other liens on the property. You're right, if that weren't true. Okay? Realtors. Are realtors a great source for buying? Do realtors know when people are in foreclosure? Huh? In fact, you want to know a neat little trick? How many realtors we got in here? Okay, that will admit it after all this. I don't have anything against realtors. We love realtors. We do a lot of business with realtors. Do realtors know when they're listing a house if it has a private mortgage held by the previous seller on it or some seller down the line? Okay. If you got that information on all the listed houses of privately owned mortgages and just went out and started buying those up at a discount, even though they weren't in default, you buy them at a discount, what's going to happen to that house? The realtor's going to sell it. When the realtor sells it, the loans underneath get paid off at face value, don't they? You following me? In other words, what if we were to buy paper on houses that we happen to know are for sale? We buy it at a discount. As soon as they're sold, they pay us face value. Option the paper? You could do that too, couldn't you? Just option the paper and not even have to come up with the cash, huh? In fact, could this paper business turn into a 5-day, full-fledged, long boot camp? Yes, and many, there are several of them out there that talk about buying discounted paper and the whole work that we're talking about here. We're just touching on it. Question?
Can you just ask your realtor and they have some way of finding out
What?
which properties are private?
Privately held properties? Yeah, you can ask your realtor and they may know, they may not know. In some states you can pull it right out of the MLS. By the way, can you pull it up from the tax rolls? These are things that are recorded, You could hire somebody to go down to the courthouse and sit there and look up all privately held mortgages. Most people do that to buy it at a discount. If I was going to do that, I'd have them go down there and look up all the defaulted privately held mortgages. Anything that's been foreclosed on, I want to know how many of them are owned by private owners. In fact, I want to know them all, don't I? Even banks, I'm telling you, they don't want to do these foreclosures. They'd rather, not all of them now. Please don't think that you're going to walk into a bank and get a defaulted piece of paper discounted just because I said so. Some of them will play ball, some of them won't. Like I said, no intelligent life form. Some of them could have 85% loan-to-value ratios and won't discount it a penny. That's their problem. They're going to wind up discounting one way or another, aren't they? You betcha, because they're going to lose money when they get ready to sell the house. But many of them will work with you, especially the finance companies. I find finance companies very easy to work with. They'd rather sell the paper. And I find most banks very easy to work with. I find Fannie Mae lenders difficult to work with. Mortgage brokers, are they a good source of defaulted paper? Huh? What, even private mortgage brokers who make private loans. If you put the word out that you buy mortgages that are in default if they're low loan to value, and that you don't, that may even be at face value, the mortgage broker would rather you come in and buy the paper than to have them put up with the problem of trying to cure the problem. Just because people are mortgage brokers don't mean that they're real estate oriented like us. Many of them in the business of making loans. They don't want anything to do with property. In fact, how many realtors have you ever met? The last thing in the world they'd ever do is buy a house. Isn't that true? Well, if that weren't true, why are they realtors? Title companies. Who orders their title every time something gets foreclosed on? Who searches the title? The title company. The attorney calls over and says, do me a title, do me an abstract for a foreclosure. They're fully aware when one's going into default. They have to do the title work. Attorneys. Nah. Appraisers. Appraisers know when mortgages are in default. They're sent out to do the appraisal work. Run ads. What if you just run ads saying, and I'm sure some of you have seen them, we buy mortgages when they're in default. If you're not receiving payments, call us. We'll pay you cash. You never seen? Well, I've seen several of them.
I've seen we buy mortgages all the time. There's never anybody in Chicago mentioned anything about default.
Well, then you ought to be the first. Foreclosure services, like I talked about earlier. The courthouse. You could physically hire somebody to search the courthouse records for all foreclosures that are going on. In fact, couldn't they also search for all liens and judgments? And give you a list of them. Could you afford to pay somebody to do that? You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. But you could afford to pay. Who would be a good candidate to do that, by the way? Title company abstractor working for you after hours or on his day off or whatever. They already do it for a living every day. By the way, you will have no trouble at all paying them more than the title companies pay them, because they work for peanuts. The financial newspapers. In every city, there's a newspaper that has all the legal actions that are going on. Here it's called Financial News and Report, or Financial News and Financial News. It's a daily newspaper, comes out Monday through Friday, and has all the legal actions in it. For plaintiffs, everything you want to know. Well, how do you profit from these discounted papers when you buy them? You restructure them and keep them, or you restructure them and sell them off. Once you've restructured them, you get them making payments. They're probably a sellable commodity now. If you buy them at the loan-to-value ratio that I want you to buy them at, I know they're a sellable commodity if you want to sell them. And sometime during this course, we're going to talk about cashing out of paper and how you figure out what it's worth. Okay? Get new owner financing. Get financing for the new owner. Go out and help them get a new loan and pay off the debt. You get paid off in face value. Or you can foreclose on them if you have to. What else could you do with this paper that you bought for pennies on the dollar?
Buy the house.
That's foreclose on them. You could also buy them out, yes. But can you trade this paper for face value for other goods? I mean, have you heard my motorhome story? So I got my motorhome. Took a bunch of little mortgages that I got for free and traded them for a $35,000 motorhome. $30,000 motorhome, free and clear. And then soon realized I'd rather have the paper than the motorhome. Sold that motorhome 5 years later, however, for $12,000 cash. Yes?
This default paper, when you purchase it, is it past the point that the present owner might be willing to deal with you at a discount and buy that paper or buy the mortgage back to where you can sell it to them at $50,000?
Anytime the present owner is in default, your chances of selling the paper to them are not very good. They can't make the payments. They sure can't buy the paper. Only thing I can do with the present owner is buy them out of the house, foreclose them out of the house, or restructure the note and let them keep making payments on it. What is a land contract, land installment contract, and agreement for deed? They are all nothing more than a promise to pay. They say, I'm the seller, you're the buyer. Mr. Buyer, when you pay me X number of payments for X number of months at X number of interest and pay me off, I will deliver you a deed to the property. That's all they are. Contract for deed, agreement for deed, land contract. That's all they are. It's very simple agreements that are a promise to pay upon time they get the deed. That's all there is to it. Lease options we'll get into later. If you're concerned about a seller getting a lien against them, you mean if you're buying with a land contract? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, by the way, I better point that out. In a wraparound mortgage, you cannot have a wraparound mortgage unless a deed is transferred. In order for me to buy a house here from Ed and give him a wraparound mortgage, he must first deed me the property, and then I give him back a mortgage. He has a lien against the property, but I now own it. Okay? Not true for land contract, agreement for deed, or land installment contract. Ed retains the deed in his name. All I have is an agreement to get that deed when I perform. I have an equitable interest in the property, but I don't technically own the house, and won't until I pay for it. Ed still owns it. So therefore, Roland's question was, what protects me against a judgment against Ed? Or from a judgment against Ed? If Ed gets a judgment against him, does it attach to his house even though I have a land contract to purchase it? Yes, because he's the owner of the house by deed. So how do I protect him? I simply, if I'm concerned about that, I'll ask Ed to put his property into a land trust. He's the beneficial interest, and whoever he wants as the trustee, he still owns the trust, which owns the house. He has total control. But now a lien against Ed will not attach to the house.
How about the other way around if a buyer gets a judgment against him?
It depends. If I'm the buyer and you sold me the house and you took back a wraparound mortgage, a judgment against me now attaches to the house, doesn't it? Because I'm the owner. right?
On a wraparound.
On a wraparound. Now,
You need the deed.
that's right. That's right. Now, if I'm buying on land contract, though, and I'm the buyer, a judgment against me does not attach to the house because I don't own the house. So the only person that can put a judgment against the house is the owner of the house. Whoever's name is on the deed that's recorded at the courthouse is the only person that can have a lien against the house placed against the house because of them.
Sounds like it's better to sell on a land contract than buy on the rack.
It's better to sell on a land contract. What state are we talking about?
Florida.
Florida? Agreement for deed.
Well, there's-
Yes, you're absolutely right. When I buy, I want title. When I sell, I don't necessarily want to give it up. He's right. I always want deed when I can get it. Question?
In the Michigan land contract, what you need to do in buying a property like that is have the deed put into a third-party holding and stating upon full payment of the contract. In the event of the
Put the deed in escrow, Earl, but that ain't going to stop a lien coming against the
No,
seller.
but I'm just saying that what you need to do to make sure that the contract, when you pay it off, will be turned in your name. Because the guy could die and his heirs could hold it up or whatever. To put it into a...
Get a deed in escrow when you're buying with land contract. I just assume you don't buy with land contract. How's that grab you?
You don't like land contracts.
Not when I'm buying. I love them when I'm selling. I'm going to do my best to get a deed and give the seller a wraparound mortgage in Ohio, Michigan, wherever. If there's no other way I can do it, I might consider a land contract. In escrow, like Earl said. But if I've already got the deed, I don't need to escrow it, do I? Always get a deed when you can. Don't ever pass up the opportunity to get a deed when you can. This is an addendum to a wraparound mortgage. No, I'm not going to read that addendum because it doesn't mean diddly. Basically, it's anytime you sell or buy with a wraparound mortgage, an addendum like that should be attached to the wrap. And it doesn't really say nothing more except that the buyer is aware that this is a wraparound mortgage. It also gives the seller the right to collect 1/12 of the taxes and insurance for escrow if he so chooses. Doesn't say he will or he won't. He says he can if he so chooses. And basically it's just wraparound language. It should be with any wraparound mortgage. So if your closing agent doesn't have one, there it be. I can't picture a closing agent closing without some kind of a similar language on a document that they have, though. You have one there blank, and you have one filled out. Let me make something clear here. You don't see any wraparound mortgage in here either, do you? All you see is this addendum to a wrap. You don't see a mortgage in here. Why? Because they're different in every county, much less every state. You don't need to worry about a mortgage. Your closing agent will prepare the mortgage. You will not. You probably will never use this addendum to a wraparound mortgage. And if you don't ever use it, don't worry about it. Basically, this is for the buyer's protection. So only unless you're going to buy do you need this addendum. If you're going to sell, don't worry about it. Okay? You don't need to worry about an all-inclusive trust deed. You don't need to worry about any kind of document used that is normal or customary to the area that the closing agent you're closing with is going to whip out and use for you. Okay? Now, I have created some land contracts and installment land contracts here for you because that is a little bit different. First of all, you probably won't have a closing agent involved with a land contract. Number one, a title company probably won't do it because they're not going to be issuing title insurance to the buyer on a land contract. No deed is transferring. Can you close a land contract over the table at McDonald's? Well, let's look and see. Well, first let me get through the assignment of rents. The assignment of rents and leases is something that you never want to fail to get signed when you're selling, not when you're buying. Basically, it's nothing more than it says, Mr. Buyer, if you default on making me payments and I have to foreclose, I'm going to collect your rents, if any, while I'm foreclosing. That's what that says. In other words, they can't go rent out the property and collect the rent while you're foreclosing and making the underlying payment. Is that really important when you're selling a multi-family on and holding back paper? Man, you don't even. I know a guy one time had 132 unit that he bought from a bank, and they forgot to get an assignment of rents, and he let them foreclose on that, and he sat there and collected rents for 9 months while they foreclosed on 132 units. No, hey, got to do what you got to do, huh? Everything we're doing here now involves taking back paper, okay, or buying and giving the seller paper. Or let's look at the agreement for deed. Anybody here from Florida? This is you. Wake up, Floridians. This is your land contract. Okay? This is the agreement you're going to use in the state of Florida or any place else where they use an agreement for deed. Boy, look at there. It's 2 pages. Super complicated, isn't it? I'm not going to read it. I don't want to take time to read it, and it's self-explanatory. If you read this, I promise you'll understand it.
No title company needed on this?
No title company needed. Now, do you buy with agreement for deed in Florida? Not if you can help it. Not if you can help it. No. Not if you can help it. In Florida, it's more common to do a wraparound mortgage and get a deed than anything else. But however, why would I want to sell in Florida with agreement for deed?
So you retain the title, the deed.
I retain the deed. Why is that important?
Judgment.
Well, I still got to foreclose now, don't I? Yes, but can the buyer get a judgment against them if the deed is in my name? They can't get a judgment against the property, can they? I'll sell with an agreement for deed for that reason only. So if I do want a deed, suppose I sell the property here to Ron, and he goes out and gets a $12.5 million IRS lien against him. Will it attach to his house if it's in his name? Yes. Could he deed me the property back? Yes, but I get a $12.5 million judgment against it in the process. If, however, I've sold to him by agreement for deed, that judgment will not attach to my house, so he can deed it back, and I don't have to foreclose the judgment off or deal with whoever's there. So it makes it easier for me to take it back. And folks, I'm telling you, rarely will I ever foreclose to take a property back. I usually deal my way out of it. I'll deal my way into a deed to get it back. Anybody who's in foreclosure, most of the time, would rather work with you peacefully than have you foreclose on them, most of the time. If they're still around. If they haven't come up missing on you. Agreement for deed to buy. If you're going to use an agreement for deed, that's the one you want to use. Look down near the bottom. It says, upon full payment of the contract, seller shall issue a general warranty deed to the buyers free of all encumbrances except as otherwise set forth. In addition, seller reserves the right to convert this contract into a note and mortgage and receive a warranty deed to buyer or assigns from seller anytime the following conditions have been met by the buyers. At least 20% of the purchase price has been paid to seller. Buyer is willing to pay all costs of title transfer and document preparation. Anytime that I, as the buyer, get 20% paid in, I can then ask the seller to deed me the property and take back a wraparound mortgage, or mortgage, whatever the case may be. Also, in that document, you'll find nothing that says I cannot transfer that agreement for deed. It's freely transferable in this document. However, let's go look at the document that says agreement for deed to sell. And let's just see if it says the same thing. First of all, there's an obvious paragraph missing down there. It doesn't say anything about the 20%. Nonsense. When I'm selling with an agreement for deed, I use a standard agreement for deed. Okay? And the standard agreement for deed does not have that provision, and it also says that it is not transferable. This agreement is not assignable without written permission from the seller. So do you see that we don't use the same document to buy that we use to sell? All right. One filled out and one blank. That agreement is so self-explanatory, I can't believe you're going to have a problem understanding it if you read it. However, if you live in Ohio don't read it. Let's look at yours. I can use the land installment contract in any state in the United States. I can. I can use the agreement for deed in any state in the United States. Look at it. It ain't nothing but an agreement. That's all it is. But agreement for deed is the term they use in Florida. Land contract is the term they use in Ohio. And pretty much, I'll tell you, they're pretty much the same agreement. Let's look at this thing. I think we can take time to read this. I'll tell you what, let's go to the one that's filled out. This basically says that we're buying this property for $72,000. We're putting $10,000 down. We owe the vendee $62,000. It's $620 a month, beginning on the first day of August, 1994. And on the first day of each and every month thereafter, we'll make the payment until 2024 at 10% interest. Very simple. Encumbrances, evidence of title, recording of contract. The vendor shall cause a copy of this contract to be recorded in the Clark County Recorder's Office within a period of 20 days. Now look down there. What's LICTB? Land Installment Contract to Buy. Do I want it recorded? You bet your bippy. You bet your bippy. Okay? Let's see. Look at paragraph 8. Notice that same 20% junk there? When I pay in 20%, I can get a deed if I want it. By the way, in some states, that's the law. You know, you don't even have to put it in there. All right? That's pretty much that. Now let's look at the one to sell. See how it differs. Look at paragraph 4. The vendor shall only cause a copy of this contract to be recorded in the Clark County Recorder's Office within a period of 20 days after the execution of this contract by the parties hereto, if the laws of the state of Ohio require recordation. See that? They can only record it if the laws require it. Incidentally, we filled in that Ohio. There ain't no line under it, but just like we filled in Clark County and so forth, we filled in it. Obviously, you changed that state. Let's see what else is different. Delivery of deed. Look at paragraph 9. Upon full payment of this contract, vendor shall issue a general warranty deed to the vendee. That's what's standard in land contracts, upon full payment. Okay? Let's look at the assignment rights. Look at paragraph 8. The vendee shall not sell, assign, or pledge their interest in this land contract without the vendor's written consent, which consent shall not be unreasonably be withheld. Okay? Turn back over to the one where we're buying. Let's see what it says about assignment. It's mysteriously not in the agreement. That's why we didn't find it. Any time that an agreement does not say you cannot assign it, you can assign it. The best way to address that, in my opinion, is to not address it. If there's no paragraph in there that says it's not assignable, it's assignable. You understand that? And that's also true for purchase and sale agreements.
So when you get a contract, you don't have to put your name and or sign.
Nope. When we go through contract class, I'm going to tell you that putting and or signs at the top of your contract is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Structuring your seller finance purchase for resale.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Paragraph 11 in land.
All right. Let's read this, because it doesn't mean what he thinks it means. It is agreed that the land installment contract shall be binding upon each of the parties, their administrators, executors, legal representatives, heirs, and assigns. Does that mean the contract is assignable? No. That means that any heir or representative after the death of the individual involved here, or anyone who they assign that responsibility to, is legally bound by this agreement. You will find that paragraph in all purchase and sale agreements. That has nothing to do with the assignability of the contract. Structuring your seller finance purchase for resale. Always know the back door when making the offer. The offer to purchase hinges on the method of sale. Is that becoming real clear to you?
Yes.
Everything you do going in is hinged on your route out. That's true, isn't it? If you start making crazy offers on properties not having a clue what you're going to do with them, You're going to a seminar. You must get in light, except with subordinations. Think about that for a second now. Why do we need to get in light anytime we're buying with seller financing?
You got to get the down payment covered.
Because we're going to get a bigger down payment from our buyer than we had to pay our seller. Therefore, we got to make sure we get in light. Maybe we ought to examine the definition of light for a second, so there's no misunderstanding. The definition of light is totally hinged upon the price range we're dealing with. What's the definition of light when we're buying a house for $50,000 getting seller financing? Or assumption, either one. $2,000 is not light enough. About $1,000 or less. I'm telling you, you're probably going to be better off not buying a $50,000 house if you got to put $2,000 out to get it than buying it. By the way, somebody's got to pay closing costs. And also, don't forget, if there's $1 worth of repairs needed, you got to add that to the cost of getting in, don't you? Does it make any difference whether you get in for nothing down and have to spend $2 in repairs, or whether you pay $2 down to get in and not have to pay nothing for repairs? Same thing, unless you get your buyer to do the repairs, of course. So you got to figure your total cost of getting in, not just the down payment to the seller. $50,000 house, I'm telling you, usually I'm getting in for nothing when I'm doing an assumption. Folks, I'm telling you, on the assumptions that are out there, many times you can just take them over if you agree to make the payments with no qualifying stuff. When you're creating seller financing, you're usually going to have to give them a little down payment. If I'm creating seller financing on a $50,000 house and I got to give them more than $1,000 down, I'm going to have to look very hard at even doing the deal. By the way, do I even care about doing a deal on a $50,000 house? After exploring some of the numbers we talked about here, maybe the best thing that happened to me is that they don't take my offer and that I don't do the deal. Always go for the lowest payment possible for the shortest term that makes sense. Maybe. It depends, though, doesn't it? If my objective is to build wealth, and I'm not hungry for monthly cash flow, could I elect to exchange monthly cash flow for short-term future growth? In other words, if I'm giving a seller back a mortgage on a property, let's say I'm giving a seller back a mortgage for $60,000, could I elect to pay that individual, for example, $500 a month and pay it off in maybe 8 years or whatever, or go for a $350 a month payment and take 20 years? I could do either one, couldn't I? For long-term growth, which is the better plan? The first one, because I'm going to pay a lot less interest, and in a very short period of time, this one's done, paid off. Now, whether I keep the property or whether I sell it on a wraparound mortgage, if I accomplish the same thing here, if I pay this off earlier, isn't all of my incoming payment now mine? Yes? So I've created cash flow in the future, not too far away, by sacrificing the $150 a month that probably doesn't mean anything to me anyway. See what I'm saying? But if I'm going for monthly cash flow, trying to replace my job, I may elect to go this route and build that monthly cash flow faster, because that will mean a lot more to me. So I have the choice. If you want to build wealth, you got to create the shortest term that your road out will allow you to create. In other words, there's no way I'm going to give the seller back a $500 payment unless I know I'm going to get more from that from my buyer, is there? I'm not talking about one of the negative cash flow deals here. Those don't compute in this computer. But there's a difference between a small spread and a big spread. I'm telling you, when you're dealing with individuals, you have a choice most of the time of which to create. So you got to get your old trusty calculator out. And so if you're in a wealth building mode, I mean, the younger folks in the room, Well, I don't know. Could go either way, couldn't it? Couldn't you older folks be more interested in this? Yeah? Yeah? Because you got to do it quick, you know? You want to get there quick because you started too late. Well, you never start too late, but you started later than you should. But you younger folks, maybe you're going to live forever. So you want the cash flow now to buy all them toys with that you don't really need and won't use when you buy. Huh?
Buy more houses.
You mean with this cash flow?
Yeah.
Well, there's only one problem with that theory is that ain't what happens to the money most of the time. It gets squandered. That's, this is a forced savings plan, isn't it? Yeah? Besides, you know what I like? Man, when I got an 8-year ammo or a 10-year ammo on a property, I just feel like I'm getting somewhere. When I got a 20, 30-year ammo, I feel like I'm wasting money, which I am. A bloody fortune in interest. However, when I sell, I want to stretch my payments out as long as I can. Don't I? Now, Jimmy won't agree with that. Jimmy Napier won't agree with that. He'll say, you want to get them employees back in so you can put them to work as fast as possible. See, to him, a dollar bill is an employee, which it is, isn't it? Okay? But what the fallacy is that Jimmy's got a high degree of control over his money, and he understands money very thoroughly, where most people do not. Just because you're getting that money in faster don't mean you're going to make best use of it, does it? If you make best use of it, Jimmy's right. Always get it back as fast as you can. But I believe that more of us need forced savings plans than we need to get it back as fast as we can. So obviously what works for one won't work for another. I prefer to stretch out my incoming payments as long as possible because it's all interest. And what I've learned, it doesn't make any difference. If I take back a mortgage for 30 years, am I going to collect it for 30 years anyway? Heck no. 2.8 years later, somebody's going to be wanting to pay me off. So I might as well let them pay me off more because I collected all interest and no principal during the 2.8 years that they were out there paying me. And if I structure it for a shorter term, big deal. I get a few extra dollars per month coming in. So what? It doesn't mean anything anyway. So I might as well collect all interest and no principal. Yes, Joe?
You say older people on the 8 years. Why wouldn't it be better for, say, us older ones to go for the 20 years to get a bigger spread, to get more income coming in now, and then let the heirs take off from that?
Well, I wasn't.
You take, say, 20 houses at maybe
I was
$200 a month.
I was assuming, Joe, that you're more interested in yourself than your heirs.
Well, I am.
Okay, then wouldn't you rather have this $500 a month in 8 years?
Yeah,
All yours.
It won't be around 8 years.
Oh, well, then it won't matter to you whichever way you do it, okay?
Now, if I get it now, I can use it now. Get a bigger spread. If I get 20 houses,
I think I just said, though, Joe, if you can control that money and you are highly disciplined, you'd probably want to get it back now. Okay? But if you're not, or if you're just trying to create, by the way, if you're trying to create a big estate for your heirs, this is the best way to go, Joe, because right now, that $150 ain't going to mean diddly to you, is it? Huh?
if I get enough of it,
But-
it's going to make my income per month later right now that I can...
If income per month is what you're looking for, Joe, you'll take this plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, I get it. If a retirement or growth or building a big estate is what you're looking for, you'll take that plan. What if you did both? Make sure the property is freely transferable upon resale with no seller interference. How do we do that? No due on sale clause. And who's in control of that? You are. You simply leave it out. Oh, well, what if the seller absolutely insists? My attorney says that I should put a due on sale clause in this loan. Well, when they say that, the first thing I say is, well, did your attorney offer to buy it from you? And of course the answer was no. And then I say, well, are you telling me that if I don't put a due on sale clause due on sale clause in your note, that we don't have a deal? And that usually kills that idea real quick. And I say, well, no, it wasn't really that important to me. I say, well, okay, I'm telling you, you start taking away and backing off and leaving them with the impression that it's my way or no way, And what they think is important suddenly becomes not important because they see this buyer fading away. If you don't believe it, you just think the last time somebody did that to you. That's called a takeaway close. Yes, Les.
When the person then saying if a due on sale card becomes important to you as the buyer, does that kind of signal the seller to think, I know that you have intention to sell this property, and you have no intention of paying me when you do.
Oh, no, Leslie. No, I never get into a situation with a seller where they don't have a clear understanding of what my intentions are to sell the property. First of all, did they call me on my ad, Les? Do they know I'm not going to live in the house? Well, if they don't, I'll tell them real quick. And let me tell you how I'd handle this. You're my seller? Okay? I handle this the same way I handle why I got to get in with a lower down payment than they request. Leslie, I can't give you what you're asking down, and I'll tell you why. The only way that I can make money on this house is if with your help, we create some financing that I can pass on to the end consumer without taking them to the bank, because I'm paying you almost what this house is worth. Okay? If I were to sell this house for cash, Les, I couldn't make a profit. In fact, I'd owe them when I'm done. Let me finish. So, the only way that I see that I can make a profit is if I, with your help, create some financing that I can pass on to the end consumer, Leslie, and get more down from them than I have to pay you. Which is why I can't give you anywhere near what you're asking down. Okay? Obviously, I've just told you that I intend to sell the property. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a wraparound mortgage, Leslie. I'm going to collect a payment from them, and I'm going to pay you every month. That's why, Les, I can't let you put the due on sale clause loan in the mortgage, because I will not get into a transaction to where I am not free to transfer the title to the property when you know full well that's exactly what I'm going to do, and that's the only reason I'm here to begin with. You know I got to make a profit on your house, or I have no reason to get involved. Isn't that correct? Now are you telling me that it's due on sale clause or nothing? Say yes.
Yes,
Okay, so you believe all that crap that attorney told you, huh? All right. I'll tell you what we'll do, Les. I think I got a solution. We'll put a due on sale clause in your mortgage. However, we'll also put in your mortgage that I have a one-time right to transfer your property without your consent. That means when I sell, I'm free to do what I want. But when my buyer sells, they need your permission. Like that, huh? Now, if Leslie won't agree with that, here's my number, Leslie. Call me when you come to your senses.
Okay, so going in, you're telling the seller going in that this original owner's financing deal is being negotiated with you as the pay-for. However, we both know that somewhere down the road, the payor is going to be someone different that I have not yet met.
Nope. I'm always going to be the payor.
Okay, right.
I'm going to protect our arrangement. But I obviously am going to sell the house to someone else and collect a payment from them and pay you. Are we talking lump sum now, or are we talking monthly payment? Are you asking me, when they pay you, am I going to pay you? When they pay me, am I going to pay you in lump sum?
Correct.
I'm going to say yes, Leslie. Of course, I'm going to call you up and negotiate a discount. You see, you know the beauty about this? We put yourself in a position to where you know you're in control all the time. And there ain't nothing that the other person can tell you that's going to make any difference in your life, give or take. And that if you don't do the deal, there's another one right behind it. I have no problem at all telling people the exact truth. You know, I found it easier to do business when you tell them the truth. And I found that they like it that way. They respect you more instead of dancing around the bush trying to pull something over on them all the time. Man, there ain't no seller ever going to talk to me for a matter of seconds before they know I have an intention to make a profit and I intend to sell a house. I mean, what am I? Salvation Army here? Come to solve your problem, riding up on my white horse, and I'm not going to get paid? Give me a break. I'm going to sell your house. And they say, what are you going to do, rent it? I'm going to say, nope, I have the same opinion of tenants you do. I'm going to sell it. Is that a problem? Yep. Bye. Nope. We do business. Simple. So the quicker we cut to the chase, and I make them aware of what I'm going to do if they ask, but I also make them aware of what's in it for them, and if they don't like it, I'll leave. Truth is, I'll never be there to begin with because I will do all this over the telephone. In fact, we're going to see just how long I spend on the phone with these people. See, I'm going to be on the phone and off the phone before you figure out what to say next, unless I choose to carry on a conversation for your benefit, which I may do. In real life, you call me up. If you ain't ready to do business in a few seconds, get out of my life, man. I mean, what do I need to talk to you for? I got other things to do. If we can't do business, why do I need to spend my time wasting my day on a deal I know I can't do? But anyway, due on sale clause. Simple to overcome. If it's an absolute must, let them do it. Get a one-time right to transfer, and all you got to do is have your closing agent write in the mortgage. Right in there after the due on sale clause, you write that in. Simple. Yes?
I'm pretty sure you ran this by us before, but you ran so much stuff by us that I don't remember it all.
You don't remember everything I've said, Ed?
No, I sure don't. Now, picking up where she left
I'm shocked.
Picking up where she left off.
Yep.
Now, suppose your buyer doesn't pay you. Does that mean you're not going to pay me?
You mean she's asking me that question?
Right.
If my buyer doesn't pay me, Ed, I am not going to walk away and leave you cold. We're going to make it work, and you will get everything that I agreed to pay you.
When?
Yeah, that's the question.
I don't know. What do you mean when?
Provided you forbearance.
Give me a problem, and I'll give you a solution to it. I mean, well, what are you worried about? Me not paying you? Is that what you're concerned about?
Right. You're going to pay it on time. Monthly, just like this.
Sure, I'm going to pay it on time. I am going to pay it on time. I'm not going to pay it, Ed. I'm going to have my escrow agent pay you. You don't even have to worry about me paying you. I'm going to have them collect it, and they're going to pay you automatically. Just like one of them annuities.
You're going to take the property back if you have to, but you're always going to keep them.
I'm going to take the property back. Worst case scenario, I have to foreclose on the property, Ed. And don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. And I am. If you work with me. Oh, I'm not doing this to scalp the seller. I'm not. Besides, is it my advantage? Forget the moral thing to do. Is it to my advantage to stay in the deal? Of course. Of course. I spend $1,500 to foreclose while he's giving me a forbearance, and I'll go out and get me another $5,000, $10,000 down payment if I have to. You don't need to worry about that too much, though, because I'm telling you, when you learn how to deal with people and not get nasty and try to force your humongous power on them and deal with them, and it's a lot easier usually to get them out under peaceful terms. The only time I've ever had foreclosed was when somebody abandoned it and I couldn't find them. And sometimes I had a deed in escrow and sometimes I didn't. Okay? Never leave cash in the house when you sell. That's Ron's rule. Structure the deal so you get all your cash out and you can hopefully then some before you turn title to the property to a new buyer. Protect yourself when selling. Again, do we sell like we buy? No. Okay. When you're selling with a wraparound mortgage or a land contract, you should put a collection clause in your note. Collateral and late fee clause. If any installment called for under the term of this note is not made within 5 days after its due date, a late charge amounting to 10 cents for each dollar or fraction thereof of said installment shall be paid by the makers. Now that's my late penalty. The maker hereof also agrees to pay any and all setup fees and collection charges and escrow account charges issued by any institution employed to collect and or receive the payments due hereunder. So you've killed two birds in one paragraph. You've got a late penalty and a collection clause right there. It says the borrower pays the collection fees and the cost of collecting it monthly. If you don't put that in the note, you cannot force the buyer or borrower to pay for those fees. Due on sale clause. You have two of them. One of them is the Fannie Mae version, and one of them is the short version below that. That Fannie Mae version is a killer. I'm mean. There ain't no way they're going to get around that thing. No way. I mean, it covers your front and back all over the place. I don't use it, though. I use the second one. It's strong enough for you to force the sale of it. Whatever you want to use. Late penalty, we just covered it. Folks, if you don't put a late penalty in the note, when will you get your payments? Probably last day of the month. Okay? I would never consider ever renting a house, lease optioning a house, selling a house without putting a late penalty in my note. I always put a 5% late penalty. I mean a 5-day, 10% late penalty. And so and I find myself lately adding a per-day penalty after that. Because once they get past the 5 days, they just relax the rest of the month. They already owe it. No incentive to pay it. Yeah. I like the 10% after 5 days. I don't want to get any stronger than that. I've seen people get stronger than that, but I'm a little concerned about a judge saying, boy, this whole thing looks one-sided to me. 10% after 5 days, I've had judges rule on and say that was a legitimate penalty. What's the standard late penalty? 4%, 15 days. Not this boy. I mean, that's okay when I'm buying, but not when I'm selling. And it's a nice little income stream, too, for you. And you put that late penalty in there and you enforce it. And I enforce mine. Payment comes in, send them a notice, send us the late penalty. Not with next month's payment, now. Now. Did I send a check back? Not on your life. I want my late penalty now. And I hound them until they pay it, and pretty soon they get the message and they pay on time. However, on the other hand, I've had people pay the late penalty every single month for the life of the note. And sometimes it comes in on the 6th and 7th day. So if that's what they want to do, it's fine with me. Yep.
If you use the per day after the late penalty, what do you do? Start it right on the 5th day?
6th.
6th day, I mean.
At the end of the 5th day, it's 10%. Boom. 10% of the payment. On the 6th day, it's $5 a day plus 10%.
You get 3 or 5?
3. I use $3 a day plus 10%. That's strong, ain't it?
Yeah.
Okay? Buyers sitting in front of me and they say, boy, that's a strong late penalty. I say, it sure is. Do you intend to be late? No. Well, then we don't have a problem, do we? Exactly how I handle that. And if they say yes, I say, oh, why? Sometimes they say, because I get paid on the 5th of the month. So I adjust the due date. That's all. Adjust the due date. I'll make it due on the 5th and late on the 10th, if I have to. Or I'll make it due on the 1st and late on the 10th. Have buyer sign personally. Folks, when I'm selling a property, I always want my buyer to sign personally. I want them to guarantee the note. I like for their grandmother and their uncle to guarantee the note, too, if I can get it. But I definitely want that buyer to guarantee the note. I won't do it any other way. Why? Because it gives me leverage if I have to exercise it. I want the buyer to sign it personally because if I had to foreclose on them, I'm going to make sure that they get not only foreclosed on personally, but they get reported to the credit bureau. That's called spite. It's called effective. And then, if I have to foreclose, I will get a judgment on them personally. And I promise you, I will not lay idle. I will bend over backwards to collect that judgment. If I have to give it to a collection agent and split it with him, I'm going to collect that judgment. Or I'm going to do my darndest to try. But I promise you, if I have to foreclose on them, I ain't going to be as relaxed as a bank. They ain't going to like me no more. If they liked me now, they're going to hate me if I had foreclosed on them. Because I am going to be a persistent individual until I either collect it or they file bankruptcy and wipe it out. One of the two. So I'm going to collect it or I'm going to force them into bankruptcy. That's just how mean I am when they make me foreclose.
What
Again, why would they? When will they make me foreclose? Only when I can't deal with them and get them out of the house. I'm telling you, it's a lot cheaper for you to buy them out than to foreclose. But if they push me, I'm going to push right back, and they're going to be sorry that they didn't do business with me when they had a chance. And that's why I want them signed personally, because I can get a judgment against them, and I can go after everything they own. And in some states, I can guarantee their wages. Can't do that in Florida. I think you can do it in Ohio, can you? I mean, you can do some nasty things to collect on these things. So anyway, if I get a judgment, I'm going to do my best to collect.
What kind of language this
Which? When they sign personally, they don't need any language. If they personally guarantee the note, I have the right to go right after them. And here's why I'm so hard on you about personally guaranteeing notes. Because anybody you agree to pay and don't pay, they have the same rights to come after you, do the same thing. I can go after the property, and I can go after them personally and attach everything they own that I can find until I collect that debt. Or I can ignore the property and go after them personally. When you sign personally, everything you own is at risk. You've got to know that.
What you should have in there is stating that that property, if we're signing the note, that property stands for collateral only?
No. I'm going to teach you to take title in land trust, let the land trust issue the note, and you don't ever need that exculpatory clause you're talking about. Because you don't have to worry about being personally liable. In fact, when you give a seller back a note anymore, your name ain't even going to be on it. Unless you're the trustee, and then it's going to be on there as trustee, and you're still not personally liable. Okay, you get a deed in escrow when you can, of course. Is a deed in escrow legal?
Yeah.
Certainly. Is it enforceable?
Yeah.
Certainly not. If you get a deed in escrow and the buyer complains, you lose. You signed a deed under duress. When you get a deed today you sell from the buyer, it's a deed under duress. It will not be upheld in any court. On the other hand, the buyer's got to dispute it. And when do you use a deed in escrow? When they split. When they're gone. That's the only time you record it. If you got to force them out, sure, you can record the deed in escrow, but it ain't going to mean diddly, I'll tell you that. In fact, if I have to force them out, I wouldn't even bother recording the deed in escrow. I'd just go ahead and foreclose them. Because if I had to force them out and I went and signed the deed in escrow, man, that's a case for legal aid made in heaven. I mean, I go do my thing and they come back at me later. But if they skip town, I don't really worry about them coming back after me. That's the only time I'm going to record a deed in escrow. And I've done that several times. It worked like a charm. But if it's disputed, forget that deed. It's going to cause you more grief than it's worth. Get enough down or additional collateral or only lease option it till you do. Oh man, is that a hard lesson. When I first started in this business, I was working all in war zones because they were so easy to buy, you know, all them crack areas. Man, I'd buy them things and I'd do a little work on them and I'd sell them with owner financing. I'd sell them with little or nothing down. I'd take back these mortgages and these people would be happy and delighted. They go live in these houses and guess what happened? Every one of them I got back. Every one of them. And over the years I've learned. And, you know, I had skilled investors try to teach me this when I first started. The only collateral, the only security you got is their down payment. I said, nah, they'll pay. Besides, it's easier for me to sell when I don't have to get much money from them. So, okay, look at all this monthly income I'm creating. Right. You only collateral, the only security you got is the amount of money you receive out of that buyer, folks. Be very careful about deeding the property and taking back a mortgage until you have enough money to where you feel comfortable they're going to pay. So if you're going to go out here and sell properties with little or nothing down, just remember, Ron said, you're getting them back. And you will. And man, they got some convincing arguments too, don't they? Convincing arguments. So, is there another solution to getting a big down payment? Yeah, you can get additional collateral. In other words, somebody wants to buy a house from you and they maybe have another house. Get it for collateral too. Then you ain't have to worry about them defaulting. They default, you get both houses. Okay? Or maybe somebody wants to buy from you and their mom's got a house or their dad's got a house. Get it for collateral. Does your buyer have to own the house for you to get it for collateral? Nope. Not if whoever does own it is willing to put it up for collateral. Get it for collateral. Hey, I got no problem at all selling a house with absolutely nothing down as long as I got a ton of collateral. More than the house I'm selling. You understand what I'm saying? Let them default. I'm going to come out a lot better than I went in if they do. Yes?
How do you put that into the note? You just add it in the legal description?
That's it. That's it. If I got a mortgage sitting here, and the legal description of the property and taking back the mortgage on is sitting here, and then there's an and another legal description under it, that also property is also tied up on that mortgage. So when I foreclose on both properties. Okay? Could I get mom and dad to co-sign for a couple with little or nothing down? Yes? Under what condition? That mom and dad's got something that I can go get if it doesn't get paid. And if you want to see some pressure, you contact mom and dad and say, your kids didn't pay, I got to come after you. I don't like to, but I got no choice. You're going to be getting a call from the kids real quick. Get additional collateral or get somebody else responsible besides the person you're selling to. And then you can let them in with little or nothing, but only then. Do not let them talk you into selling with little or nothing down.